German museum is facing a backlash after creating a designated time for non-white visitors to view an exhibition about colonialism. There are police stationed at the museum. It is the Zeche Zollern Museum in Dortmund. It's dedicating 4 hours each Saturday as a safe space for people who are not white to visit the show Is Colonial, with the purpose of being, as they put it, considerate of people who are more affected by the topic of colonialism than others. Now, let's get into this and talk to Maurice MacLeod, who is an anti-racism activist. We're also going to talk to Joy Porter, who is a professor of Indigenous environmental history at the University of Hull. Maurice, perhaps I could come to you first. This is, to me, actually something that is pretty undesirable, but what do you think?
Hello, Peter. So yeah, when I first heard it, my initial reaction was, oh, that sounds crazy. That sounds, really discriminatory. Why would you not let people in to a museum? And then to be honest, I've had a bit of a think, and I completely get what they're doing. Now, I went to the southern states in December, so I went to the southern US states, sort of Atlanta, Georgia, Alabama, Louisiana, and I sort of obviously went to the Civil Rights Museum because...
Which one did you go to, Maurice? Because I was there a couple of months ago.
I went to the one in Atlanta,
Yep.
I went to one in Mississippi, moving, incredibly powerful. And I found myself in tears because this is the work that I've done my whole life. It also speaks to ancestors and parts of my family, and it really, really moved me. I found myself incredibly embarrassed, to be in a room full of people who were being very sympathetic and, no one was doing anything horrible. I just felt very embarrassed to be the only black person there and to be crying my eyes out in a Civil Rights Museum. And so, in that, if that museum had said to me, oh, between these hours, it's not exclusively, because I don't, but we invite black people or people that have been impacted by this to come and have a look and feel okay with their emotions and not be embarrassed. I think that makes perfect sense now.
Interesting. So you've kind of changed your mind on this since we gave you a ring about it. Interesting. Well, it's funny you mentioned that, actually. I'll come to Joy in a second, actually, but I was not quite the same states. But I went to Texas, I went to Alabama, and I went to Selma, Alabama, went to Montgomery and Birmingham, and I'm really interested. I studied a lot of civil rights history at university and so on, and a lot of the stuff I saw, went to a museum of lynching, for example, really disturbing stuff, really horrendous stuff. And I wouldn't want to make anybody feel uncomfortable, but at the same time, if I'd been told that I couldn't go there, I would feel that was kind of weird. But listen, Joy, maybe I need to be more sensitive about this, I don't know. Joy Porter is Professor of Indigenous Environmental History at the University of Hull. Thanks for being so patient, Joy. What do you make of this?
I think this is probably a communications error on the part of the museum. I think their impulse is good because Germany did bring back a lot of skulls from massacres and events that happened in German colonial lands. And it may be that people really need time to deal with emotionally what they're displaying, because some of it could be really, really difficult for people to cope with. But at the same time, absolutely every German needs access to this story, and it's, if we're going to encourage inclusion and people assimilating and understanding their own past and how their ancestors behaved in the past, absolutely every ethnicity needs to feel
I actually think
that they have access.
That's a fair point, Joy, and I wonder, even by having this 4 hours a week kind of thing, surely this will put some people off. Because I was in one of those brilliant museums. I think it was the one in Atlanta, actually, that I went to. I went to quite a few of them, to be honest, Maurice, that I know you've been to as well, or similar ones, similar exhibitions and museums and so on. There was one particularly affecting exhibit where you kind of walked through a hall, and it was a good kind of 20 meters or whatever, and on the walls there were all sorts of crashing waves and all sorts of really very violent bits of the ocean. And then on the kind of floor, which was supposedly the ocean bed, there were basically skulls and, what's the word I'm looking for? sort of clay models of people's heads. And it was really to emphasise within that Civil Rights Museum that slavery and coming across on slave ships involved a lot of people being thrown overboard for alleged, sort of misbehaviour or just getting in the way or fighting for their rights or whatever. And that so many people just died of illness and starvation and so on. I found that really profoundly affecting. I was crying. I was really, really moved by that. But I don't feel that I hope that wasn't making anybody else uncomfortable. It certainly made me uncomfortable, and that was kind of the point of it. And actually confronting history, and the whole point of history is that, people disagree and we need to keep looking at it and so on. I wonder if excluding people in any way is the right thing, Joy.
I think if you know that there are people who are going to, it might be probably better to create spaces where people can go if they need to deal with their emotions and so on. But I think everybody on this call, we've all probably come from a colonial past. I can hear your accent, Peter. And, whenever this was dealt with in Northern Ireland, it was very much using museums to bring people together and confront the past together. It's the togetherness that really... power of history.
And Maurice, I agree with you, Joy. And actually, Maurice, from my perspective as well, I wonder if you agree with this. I mean, there is a very racist legacy of saying that black people couldn't participate in all sorts of things in society, and that things were, the ridiculous idea of separate but equal, which was never the case, but that lots of people couldn't participate at all times. But I mean, is this not a racist policy in some ways?
No, I really don't think it is. I mean, so for instance, if the museum was saying this museum is only for black and people of colour and no one white can ever come in, and this is that would be troubling. Or even if it was saying during the safe space 2-hour period or 4-hour period, even if they said no one white can come in that space, I still think that would be a bit troubling. All they seem to be saying, from what I can work out, all they seem to be saying is this is a good time for you to come if you feel like you might be impacted, if you feel like you might be descended from the things that we're displaying here. I think that's really sensitive. I think it's a good thing. No one's saying that anyone else can't come. If there was a Holocaust museum and they said between these hours it's really only for people that have had an impact, have had a connection to this horrible thing, I would go, oh gosh, yeah, okay, I'll go at a different time. That's normal human decency, I think.
Maurice, what do you make of this text? There's no name in this text. It says, if black people are entitled to their own space, then white people are entitled to their own space. End of story. Stop taking history up and using it as a club to beat people that had nothing to do with it. Nobody here was alive in those days. What would you say to that texter, Maurice?
I roll my eyes, to be honest. It's such a standard. It's like saying, oh, why are you having Black History Month? There's no White History Month. The museums of the world are, to be honest, full of stuff that's been nicked from black and brown people. So, to suggest that having a few hours where people are considerate of that is the same as excluding people it's just nonsense. Of course, history should be remembered. Of course, we should all go and look and have as much understanding about what's gone before us so that we can, live in the past and live in the present and prepare for the future. We need to know what's gone before, and being blinkered to stuff is just not going to work.
Joe, you're a professor of history. Do you worry that the new focus, or a relatively recent focus, on different types of history is a bad thing, and that we're forgetting what actually happened and trying to insert narratives to how history is viewed? Or do you think that actually history exists because people disagree and there will always be different perspectives on it?
I think we need to remember what museums are for. I think they're for bringing society together in a positive direction. And one of the helpful things they can do is help us face the past but meet the future together as communities. And remember, this whole issue has been whipped up by the right in Germany in order to serve its political aims. So it's not serving the purpose of making Germany stronger, more unified. It's people understand each other better, history being used to make people smarter, more inclusive, more understanding of one another, focused on good things. This incident is being used to advance a political agenda and the rise of the right extreme right in Germany. And it's very important we don't get used for that purpose, and that we keep the space of sane, caring, tolerant discourse as wide as possible.
Okay, thank you both very much indeed. That was Joy Porter there, who's a professor in Indigenous Environmental History at the University of Hull, and also Maurice MacLeod, who is an anti-racism activist.